What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and this one wants to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market, what's happening with the economic calendar, and what the news is saying about Tesla. That's very important this morning. But before I break into detail all this information, before I talk about what's going on with Tesla stock, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks. And this offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the market and the charts. Looking at Tesla this morning, Tesla's looking a little bit weak as we saw this thing attempts to gap up, and now it's just starting to drop in the pre-market, barely holding support in the 237s. But the question is, will Tesla hold this critical support, or are we about to see a big drop in the share price? I'll be answering that in just a couple of minutes. First, let's talk about some news affecting the markets, then the economic calendar and Tesla news. So Nasdaq dropped over 1.18% on Wednesday. That's the second trading session of 2024. And we saw a lot of selling for many of these tech stocks, from Apple to Nvda and Tesla and Meta. So seeing the market kind of selling off the way it is, this is no surprise after all the pumping we saw in November and December. When it comes to the Fed, there's some news that came out with the minutes. As a reminder, the Fed basically indicated that they're not going to be cutting rates quite yet or quite soon. They're not really sure about exactly when they're going to do it, and they're going to just continue to wait. So they are planning on cutting rates sometime in 2024. There may be 3 rate cuts coming, 75 basis points worth of cuts. We don't know quite yet exactly when they're going to start. They also mentioned that they're going to likely keep the benchmark rates the same, so they're not going to, be raising rates. I don't expect to do so quite yet. But they did add some uncertainty because we don't know about when they're going to be cutting rates and stuff. So that's what the market didn't really like. GM had its best year in sales for 2019. It sold 2.6 million vehicles in 2023. That's a 14.1% increase in 2022, which is good for them. Oil prices rose more than 3% on Wednesday because tensions are high in the Red Sea, and it's having a big effect on the market and crude. It's Xerox, excuse me, guys, that's basically planning on cutting 15% of its workforce this quarter. And that's some very important news for them because with these layoffs coming, this is going to have a big effect on different stocks out there, and also the current views right now. There's some negative views right now about the economy, especially going into this year with the recession potentially coming up. So now let's just talk about some data. Initial jobless claims were at 202,000. This is below expectations. The market kind of dropped when this came out and bounced again, and now it's kind of flat, but it's starting to actually remain a little red. Besides that, everything else was close to expectations. There are 2 main times you need to be watching for data today. At 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the S&P Global Composite PMI and the Services PMI coming out. This is going to be 15 minutes after the market opens today. Watch and see some volatility based off what the PMI report suggests. This is going to be important for services and also our other sectors in the economy. On top of this, at 11:30 a.m., we have the 4-week and the 8-week bill auctions coming out. Now, with the Fed adding uncertainty to their monetary policy, this could cause them to increase. So watch for volatility at 11:30 a.m. as well. These are both minor pieces of data. They're not like as big as CPI, but this might cause some volatility in the markets. 9:45 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As far as Tesla goes, the news has come out that the Tesla Model Y has passed the Tesla Model 3 as the best-selling EV in history. That's some big news because the Model Y is just continuing to become more and more popular looking at their total sales. The Model 3 sales have been very, very high, but the Model Y has once again just surpassed it, showing more and more popularity, especially in the US. That's great news for Tesla as their sales are increasing, and we'll see how things basically perpetuate as time goes on. You guys can actually see their sales right over here too. Anyways, now let's just talk about the charts. How are things looking? Tesla's very simple. When we zoom out of Tesla like this, we can see that there's quite clearly a downtrend. You can see Tesla's downtrending so far. There's no sign of this thing trying to break just yet. And if we look at the daily is looking bearish. It's just continuing to sink. If we look at the 4-hour time frame, this is also sinking. And it's just barely holding support right over here. So basically, we have this 237 to 236 zone of supports. This is going to be very important. It's very important that Tesla holds this, because if we lose this, we're going to be anticipating a bigger drop down to the lower 230s. And that's going to be very key. I'm going to actually like redraw this as a channel. I think it's very important that I do this. So it's going to be like this zone right here. And from 237 to 236, just like this. I'm going to be watching this very, very carefully to see if Tesla could hold this support. If we lose this support, if we end up actually breaking below this and we end up failing to hold it, we're going to be anticipating an even bigger move to the downside. We're going to likely come all the way down towards 230 if we end up losing this support right here. So watch that very carefully. For resistance, you're going to be watching this 240 area. If we break that, there's going to be 242, 244, and then 247 is resistance. Tesla's forming a bearish wedge, so it is looking kind of weak right now, just barely holding the support. So we will see if the support holds or not, if buyers try to defend it here. But overall, the technicals look a little bit weak for it, so watch that support carefully. See if Tesla could hold 236 to 237. If it loses this support, there's going to be more downside coming. We could be coming much closer to the lower 230s, and Tesla is going to remain weak. So watch that very carefully. It's going to be key for right now. And thus far, Tesla's looking a little bit weak. On SPY is on a downtrend as well. We actually have this like channel right here. You guys can see this channel that SPY is stuck in. If you want to be bullish, you want to see this thing break above not just 470, but 472. And if you're bearish, you want to see this thing lose 468. But 468 is a key support on SPY. If we lose this, that's one thing. That's going to be a little bearish. But if we close below it, that's going to be even more bearish, this 468 support. So it's very important that we watch this, especially on SPY. The 4 hour is kind of flat right now. It's barely holding 468. And on the daily, we're actually looking, let me pull up the daily. Daily is also looking kind of bearish right now. If you look at the chart right now, we're just barely holding our 20 EMA. So watch 468 to 20 EMA. If we lose this, we're going to be bearish. If we close below this, that's even more bearish. So watch that very carefully for SPY, and we'll see if this holds or not. 468 is going to be the most important level of today. Do we hold this or not? Do we close below this? That's going to be key for today. We're on a bearish channel right now, so odds do favor the downside thus far. We'll see if we can try to break or not. But overall, it's looking a little bit weak, guys. So be very careful on SPY. It's still looking very weak. QQQ is also looking weak, looks bearish as well. It's barely holding 396.5. Remember, we called it level out yesterday after we got this break. So it kind of broke below 399, backtested, and came all the way down to 396.5. Then we have 395, 394, and then 392.5 as support, followed by 390. For resistance, make sure you watch 390, basically this zone right here, 398, 399, 402, 404. Those are going to be our resistance levels. To be bullish, you want to see this thing break 402. So far, we haven't done that. We're still looking very weak, barely holding the 396s. So it looks bearish. If you look at this, we're on a bearish channel. We've been downtrending quite a bit. So it might pop up a little bit when we open and just continue to sell off. It is looking kind of weak so far, but watch and see if we can try to break this channel. Overall, we're still favoring the bears a bit more. On Nvda, I just want to call out Nvda for a second. Nvda has a potential inverse head and shoulders that's attempting to form, but we'll see if this plays out or not. If Nvidia can break 482, there's going to be hope for it to start pushing back up into the high 480s, and it could bounce. But we need to break this support, this resistance, right over here. If we lose 473, we're going to turn more bearish, and Nvidia could be sinking down to 468. All right, so make sure you watch these levels. Do we lose 473? If we lose that, we're bearish. Do we break 482? If we break that, we're bullish. Right now, we're kind of stuck in this channel, and we have a potential inverse head and shoulders setup, but we'll see if this is a trap or not, because these don't always play out. So watch it very carefully. See if Nvidia could try to break 482 to turn bullish, or if we end up failing and we end up losing 473 to turn bearish. That's going to be very key. So watch those levels. For Aapl, in my opinion, is looking a little weak. It's barely holding 182. If it loses this, it's going to come down very close to 180 in my opinion. For resistance, watch 183.5, 184.25, 185, and then 186.5. Overall, Aapl is just barely holding 182, so we'll see how it does. But if anything, it is still looking weak, still looks very bearish, so watch it very, very carefully. But that's it for your update for the day, guys. This is going to be for the pre-market. Make sure you watch your levels carefully, and I'll see you guys very soon for an intraday update in just a couple of hours. Take care, guys. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you, and peace out.